Welcome to the Security Cocktail Hour. I'm Joe Patti.
I'm Adam Roth.
Adam, we're going to have fun today because we're talking about AI again. And last episode, we talked to a consultant who works with a lot of customers, sees the whole view of AI. Today, we're talking to a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, who's going to tell us about what he's doing. Someone who actually does something, who actually secures stuff. So we're going to hear what he's up to. And today we are lucky to have Myke Lyons from Cribl. Myke, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys?
I'm doing well.
We're doing great. It's a nice day here, and we're going to talk about AI. See, I got to keep saying AI over and over again so these algorithms pick it up.
You got to say Gen AI, LLM.
That's right, Gen AI, LLM. What else can we do? We should just have a list and go through it.
MCP. Everybody's talking about MCP.
That's right. MCP is new. That's a hot thing. Those are the scary ones, too.
Or as our previous guest said, digital twin.
Oh,
that's right. Digital twins.
Can we do that? Is that cool?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I might not even really be here. This might be my digital twin, but I don't want to talk about it.
I am my own digital twin. I am my own best friend.
That was what's his name?
Right. It was
that was in what's it called again?
That was Spaceballs and John Candy.
John Candy, yeah.
He was a mug.
Candy.
He was a mug. I'm a man. I'm a dog. I'm my own best friend. Yeah, it's good.
So, Myke, I can't quite figure out what company you're at, given your dress there.
Yes, I am at a company called Cribl. We don't have an A, but we have an I in our name, so we're working our way towards it. Cribl is so I got my start a long time ago in the logging space and log management, which was, I guess it was before SIM was a SIM. It was kind of SIM and SEM.
Right,
so you could probably date when I got started there. And so Cribl is it's a telemetry company, and we are the data engine for IT and security, which effectively means we move your logs, your metrics, your traces from point A to point B in the way that you intend to move them, as opposed to just fire hosing them into one or, hopefully one destination, and then trying to figure out what schema matches your thing. So I feel like I'm giving back a little bit to the security community and helping uplift us in telemetry world. When I got my start in security in logging, the goal was to get all the logs. Now all the logs are way too many logs. So now it's
too
more
expensive.
It's too much. The stat I've been hearing is 28% CAGR for logs, which is not how my budget grows. And my CEO says, he talks to people all the time and says, budgets are not aligned or growing at the same rate that the logs are growing. So it's a good way to put it in the place so you can make more sense out of it. Usually it's sending it to a SIM of some sort, as well as other destinations.
So you're in the logging space. So it's not exactly a security company, but it's used by a lot of security groups basically to handle their SIMs and their logs and everything, but not just that, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is what we said about SIMs. SIMs were not security tools at one point, supposedly. They were tools for statistics and whatever else, and then they became a security tool. I'm not going to say the two other brands because obviously you're on here, but some of those didn't originate as SIMs. They originated as other software. And then we talk about like original log, and we talk about syslog. Syslog is no longer syslog. Syslog is whatever.
Syslog's a great one. It's one of those scenarios where we sent something that we were required to keep for various durations and operate our business, but we would send it over UDP, which is not exactly the surefire way to get something to its destination you need it to be. The other side, it's funny, for a number of years, and I've said this to people I've had the chance to work with over the years in security and people on my team or I was on their team, SIMs and security logging was really about auditing to many extents. And I think it became an operational tool, a reactive tool, and it became really fast. The indexing services that they built were great. And then we took it and we kind of ran with it a little bit. We attached SOAR to it. Obviously, a lot of the big brands out there bought into bought companies that were SOARs. Now we're looking at AI SOC. Then we were leveraging things like MSSPs, and we are leveraging MSSPs. The thing that I would say, so no, not purely a security company, but definitely security SRE teams, IT teams, people that run apps. They're the ones who, consume our service the most or deploy our product the most. But what I am seeing, and I'm obviously a customer, being the CISO, I'm the operator here, of a great team of people. We use it for a lot of threat hunting. And a lot of our customers use the telemetry that we gather for threat hunting because we can keep it in a much cheaper location. Your storage you bring, if you have S3 buckets or whatever, we could search across all of those things in a much less expensive storage vehicle than your SIEM, which is for your high value, high fidelity information, but it has a high cost attached to it. So I think if you think about the pyramid, the tip of the pyramid, the high value stuff goes on top. That middle tier is that, like, let me go back, grab context, let me go back and look for TTP or IOC searches back 90 days, 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case may be. And then I have I got to keep it because otherwise I get in trouble tier. And then I have my dev null tier.
Yeah, but it's sort of a security company, and you're the CISO. I mean, and you have this product, you must have absolutely unlimited access, unlimited scalability, right?
Well, I'm still responsible for a budget at the end of the day.
I'd be willing to bet you they probably manage him like a customer will manage a SIM or Cribl, where they say, look, our bill increased by $6,000 a month. Shed some logs. We don't need the logs of somebody ordering the menu and it going through the HTTP web server. So I'm sure he's getting managed as well. Lower the budget, even though we're the client and the vendor. You got to lower it.
It is so it's usually my finance team who reaches out to me and says, hey, you're running a little hot this month. And we realized that somebody was probably building something out or testing something in CloudTrail. Is chatty, right? CloudTrail logs went through the roof because they can be chatty. They're also really useful, but only for a short duration of time. So this is kind of how we're getting the benefit of it, and also at the same time learning and experiencing what I think a lot of the other players out there are experiencing. The other side of it is I really like some of the things that we stand for here, or many of the things that we stand for here. One of them is it's your data. So my data that's routed around by Cribl goes into my storage vehicle, my blob storage vehicle. Our customers, they want to route it to their places. Like, it's still their data. We're very hands off. So from what's going on in the macro industry about like limiting your access or being able to use, it's topical for us today, AI against your data. It's your data, right? I'm a big fan of that, a big advocate for that. And I'm hearing not all of the cyber world is aligned to that. They're either training on your data, they're opting you into training. We're going through some of those scenarios with some of the larger AI players where now you have to go and click a bunch of buttons and opt out from them training on your information, or they're rate limiting your access to your data. Some of the ticketing vendors are doing that, and it's like, whoa, this is my ticket information. I should be able to get it.
It's been a while since I've really dealt with SIMs, but I remember at one point you had access to your data, but you didn't have access to export your data as a whole. If you were moving to another organization, like, nope, you want your whole data in one big piece, you have to pay money. Sound
Well,
familiar,
it's
Joe?
huge too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've encountered that, but you got to do two things. You need to make sure that in your contract, when you do a termination on it, whether it's you just decide to go somewhere else, so there's an issue, that you can get your data, but you also got to figure out, can you get the data? I mean, if you're talking
It's not on the USB, is it, Joe?
many yeah, I mean, I've done this, and I mean, it took weeks, if not months, to get all the data. It's and you got to have somewhere to send it too.
What's the schema? Is it usable? Because is it something that's just so specific to that particular vendor's? Yeah, that proprietary. There we go. I haven't even had a cocktail yet. Proprietary schema. Although full disclosure, I did get one.
You just let an AI chew on it.
There you go. There we go.
How many resources can that take?
So yeah, for me, I think there's some schemas are really useful. OCSF is a great, great open schema. It's not as broad as I think we would like it yet. I think it's growing and maturing. And OCSF is available to anybody to use. But there's reasons why you also may want to keep raw, right? And so I'm lucky in that regard where I can keep some stuff in OCSF. I can also keep it in raw. I can modify the schema as I go. I can store it in raw and view it in OCSF, or I can pipe it out in OCSF. So there's some cool stuff going on, and unlocking that's going on with data.
I'll tell you, I like having access to the raw, and I'll tell you why. You probably don't need it, but if you have a big SIM and you have a lot of data and you're spending like this ungodly amount of money for it, I'd hate to be in this situation where I need to explain to, like, the CEO or the COO or something. It's like, yeah, well, we had this data, but we watered it and we paid all this money, but we watered it down to save a little bit of money, and now we don't have it and we can't do it. That kind of thing makes me nervous. I don't know how realistic that is, but that always worried me.
Yeah. But then you find out if it's not in the raw data, the raw format, and then you have it in a proprietary format, you might not have realized. And again, I'm not an expert on SIMs or any type of logging, but you find that when you went to that proprietary format or any format, that you lost a field that you didn't realize should have been there.
It's my kids are not quite old enough to be able to go to the grocery store, on their own fruition and get stuff. But it's like you sort of send your kid out with a shopping list of things, and you're in your mind they're going to make you like a cheeseburger, right? Apparently today is National Cheeseburger Day,
Oh,
which is so. There you go.
Really?
Dinner plans now. Gotcha. Sorted. So like you send them out and you're like, hey, just get the ingredients for the cheeseburger, and they come home with a salad. Like how disappointing would that be, right? You got to come and be like, hey, here's a salad. I know you wanted a cheeseburger, but here's a salad. It's kind of the same thing with schema, right? You grab all those things, you change them, you mix them around, and then you don't necessarily end up with what you originally wanted.
I'm gonna have to correct you though.
Okay.
I think the answer might have been you got a cheeseburger salad and you got all confused. So the format was a little bit changed, and then you end up getting a cheeseburger salad, but you wanted an actual cheeseburger.
That's fair. That's fair. But I feel like the cheeseburger
I'm
should just be
lost.
that big old hunk of.
I was just being funny, Joe. I mean, meaning that we don't have the right format, and then you're using the same attributes, but they get mixed around a little bit. And so instead of you actually getting, you got the lettuce, you got this, you got the pickle, and you were getting a salad, but you actually wanted a cheeseburger, and you didn't get all the ingredients. You missed the meat. I don't know. That's how I saw it.
Oh, I know. Well, I don't have deep expertise in this, but I've worked with it enough to know the pain of dealing with the formats, dealing with the huge amounts of data, and stuff. Although, it's funny. I whenever I'd have something outsourced or whatever, say the vendor is like, oh, the queries are going slow or something. I'm like, listen, I'm paying you good money. Just throw more CPUs at it. I guess you can't do that with yours, huh?
Not well. We could throw we could throw more Amazons at them, I guess would be the way I would phrase it. There is a lot of it's also, I think, one of the important things. This is something that I experience running investigations sort of continuously. If I'm running an investigation, the SIM is the place I want to start my investigation because it's going to be timely index information. But as I'm running that investigation, I might want to say, okay, might have an indicator here, might be something that's interesting to me, an IP address, a domain, or whatever. I also want to be able to run across a much larger set of data, that investigation in parallel to my sort of live fire defense mode, right? And so this is like, if I was to run that both in the SIM, I'm going to bog the SIM down because, to your point, CPUs may be impacted while I'm running one query. So by having the ability to run it across multiple data lakes, if you will, or a data lake in a SIM, I'm also expanding that. I can also let my team have more information and they can run these things in parallel. So we can run more historical lookups as well at the same time of running just what is currently, kind of going on.
You know what I find interesting? Like when I was working with Sims, you know, we would, do the use case for the SIM and then get the fields and then run the queries and create use cases. But then that vendor, whether it was a networking vendor, whether it was even Microsoft or whatever, they changed their format of their logging, And then I'm like, oh my God, what broke? And then we had to rewrite and do all the fields and attributes and find out the spacing. It was I'm kind of glad I don't do Sims anymore, but then again, I don't do much anymore, so all good.
Normalization is a very challenging thing. I'm a big advocate for detections as code. I think it's a I like to buy software from vendors that offer me a detections as code scenario. But again, that normalization is critical, right? You have somebody calls it IP, somebody calls it IP underscore address, somebody calls it IP underscore adder, and being able to normalize that across the board is challenging, or has historically been challenging. Now, being closer to that, I get the luxury of like sort of just generally using natural language to interrogate the data. I'd like to honestly be able to yell at it at some point, right? Like,
Well,
right, as a professional, that security professional for many years, the two of you, know what you want, and why should I have to learn some oddball query language, or have to be able to write SQL or KQL or like all that stuff, when I just know what I want? Like, give me my destination. Also, I think the junior people that are coming up, like the newer folks, they're gonna have a completely different point of view or perspective about how to get to the destination. And so I'd hate for them to learn some, Pascal, right, or something, or Cobalt. Like, I'm not, right? I'm like,
Fortran 77, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
exactly. Like, why the hell are they gonna have to learn that? Well, they should just be able to come in and be able just to have that conversation with the data.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is what I worry about so much. We're getting into the natural language and the LLMs and everything. Is all right. So you got your analysts, you got your junior guys, and it used to be, the ones who were really good. They could write a great query. They knew all these funky syntaxes and all this stuff that I forgot about that stuff years ago. But now you don't need it. But one of the things that they got from doing that was they really understood like what the data is and what's going on and what questions to ask. So I mean, how are you dealing with those people now in terms of training them? And then you give them a thing and just say, yell at the thing, ask a question, and they're like, and someone say, first week or something, it's like, what happened? I mean, like, how how are
I
they learning?
This phrase has been quoted internally, and something I use sort of jokingly, but I just sprinkle a little AI on top, and then they're able to get whatever the hell it is that they want.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that we're not going to be able to use, I don't want to say it out loud because it'll trigger my background, but
Yeah.
GOOG, yeah. Hey, blah blah blah. Find the destination IP of 192.168, 1.0/24 in all of my data lakes, and let me know if there's a source or attribution, blah blah blah, to whichever log. Is that what we're going to be doing one day?
I could envision it's going to be a combination therein. The thing that you've just said, imagine chaining like 6 or 7 things together, right? So it's find me every instance of that address you just mentioned, or that range you just mentioned, and also once you turn up the results, enter them into the ticket as an additional file that I can then use to write a Python script to move to the next system or to the next location, or to run a defense or update my detection.
Sounds
I
like a
see that stuff
virtual,
coming.
yeah, it sounds like a virtual assistant SOAR
Hmm.
or AI sim, type of thing.
It's or a co-pilot. Oh God, the
I,
over
did- I,
the
did- I,
over.
did- I didn't want to say that, and I purposely didn't say that.
It's I don't it's funny you say that, the G word there, the goog. I don't use it anymore. Like, I actually have stopped, and I was a huge advocate, right, as we used to say, like my Google foo was strong. Right now I use a different mechanism. I use Perplexity because that's the tool that I like right now. I've used ChatGPT extensively. I've kind of written the idea of a search, an internet search, sort of out of my general day to day, but I probably use Perplexity 50, 60, 70 times a day, just like
When
I
you
use Google.
know,
Yeah,
yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, I've done the same thing. I've tried to be cool and I'm like, oh my God, you do this. It's so fun and you can find all this. But I found out that I've been going back to using the standard search engine for some things, and I don't use Google, but because I'm paranoid. But sometimes I just want to know, like, oil filter for this model car. Just find that for me. I don't need a tremendous amount of thought and a dissertation on this stuff, depending
I
on
don't.
what it is.
Joe. Look, we actually had this conversation last podcast, which is coming out now, and we spoke about the issue with search engines, and we spoke about AI, and we spoke about the security issues behind that. But meanwhile, every single one of us is carrying a phone, and every one of our phones, unless you're using a flip phone or one of those like special, like you can buy online for $1,500 NSA phones that doesn't have a built-in assistant, that doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. The Bluetooth gets turned off if you're in a Faraday cage. We still have everything in our lives is being heard, listened, recorded. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like we're recording for quality, assurance from your Google or from your Apple, whatever it is. We have no choice almost anymore, unless if you don't want modernization, you really don't have anything.
It's a
I'm
fair
depressed.
statement. It doesn't no. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't watching.
Or
We
listening.
know they're watching. They are watching. They're watching everything.
Wait,
Please.
we had a woman on, an attorney that like wrote I think a book on this, and she's like, oh, you got to be careful of all this, and then she said, I can't live without it. I still use it though, and she wrote a book on how their data is being collected. Remember that,
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a former CISO from Robinhood, Caleb Sema, wrote a really interesting. So when he sort of retired from Robinhood, and his wife is actually a sort of a TV chef, a TV personality, and her family has come up in San Francisco, owning many restaurants and being a cool place to go. At any rate, he wrote a really interesting LinkedIn post that's available, and it's on like how private you can become if you really just focus on it. And he started off with like, here's how I can buy a car under an alias, and I don't have to, because they sell your like every acquisition of everything you make, you have to give up information, and then they in turn sell that information to some sort of data broker, and they sell it and groom it and modify it and change it and reformat it. And he went into these really interesting details. I thought it was cool. And then sort of the summary is, how much of an inconvenience is this? And he said, monumental.
Well, I'll tell you. I have an old car, and sometimes I say, you know what? I'm going off the grid. This car it's from the '80s. It has no electronics. It's like no nothing. And I'll go out and I'll say, you know what? Sometimes I'm leaving the phone at home. I just want to be off the grid or whatever for a little bit. Except then I realize the damn thing is so likely to break down. Being in it without my cell phone is a very bad idea.
Yeah, but what he's not telling you, Mike, is that it doesn't run on gas and it doesn't run on electric. It has the hole in the bottom, and you have to use your feet like the Flintstones.
It's not that old.
But look. You go to CVS. You go to any of your pharmacies. That data is there, and that data is mined, because part of what you're doing is, unless you opt out, a lot of that data is sent. Your doctors are sharing the data with other doctors. You have to give permission to a certain extent if you're sharing among different medical places. You have a laptop. A laptop's either Windows or Mac or Linux. And even Linux these days has a certain level of acquisition of data. Your camera on your computer, the camera on your phone has microphones. Your TV hanging on the wall. I can go down a laundry list of everything that you're doing that's listening and hearing and transcribing. It's almost impossible to do anything these days unless you want to get a flip phone, and even then, you never know if somebody's gonna, have some kind of device or ability to read it. It's all good though.
Well, I'll tell you the other. Oh,
You guys
what's
have
that?
these in this is a Faraday bag.
Yeah.
It's filled with Faraday bags of different sizes for all the different devices that I have. Because
I
as
gotta
a
get one of
security
those.
person, we're all a little bit, we all got our thing.
Faraday
My
bags too.
basement's also a Faraday cage. I have mesh in the concrete, both above, below, and on the sides, because maybe it'll happen. I don't know. Be good to go down there and be able to protect myself. But yeah,
Cool.
so I'm nuts. Don't get me wrong. I'm a security nut, but
Hey, listen, I'm such a nut that the other day I was cleaning up my PC, looking on my Mac, looking for stuff, and I'm like, oh, there are some recordings here of my voice that I have in iCloud. I really don't want Apple to be able to get into that and someone to use my voice and all. Then I said to myself,
What am I
dude,
talking
you have a
about?
podcast. There are like hours and hours of my voice on the internet.
This over my cameras on my computer, but every single one of our phones, we don't cover the microphone. We don't. I've written, I've written papers about this for a degree I'm going for. Everything that you have, the ACLU, they talk about that also about, you know, how it helps you and how it hurts you, right? Somebody's getting a divorce, the husband, turns around and subpoenas the data for their MyFitnessPal. Or why was your MyFitnessPal at 160 beats per minute, 3 o'clock in the morning when you weren't with me? So these things have actually really happened. So your data is your data. You want the convenience of losing the weight. You want the date. You want to count your calories. You want to do this. You want to do that. But everything's out there.
I think it's also about, just like with all things security, it's about scoping. The analogy of, I use the analogy of like, I got $100 to spend, and how am I going to spend it? Well, guess what? I'm not going to peanut butter spread that money across all of my things that I need to be careful about. I'm going to go through an exercise. I'm going to evaluate what are my most important things. With me going to CVS or Walgreens, I'm going to be really, really worried about my existence and functioning. I probably have a bad Walgreens or a bad CVS that I'm going to, right? I'm more worried about driving to the damn place and getting hit by somebody who's texting and driving versus going in there and having them aisle by aisle scan my phone and pick up my IMEI and then share it against their database. But I am worried, very realistically worried, about remote attacks, people that can send me, zero-click exploits to iMessage or WhatsApp or something to that effect. That scares the crap.
I'm not concerned about that as much. I'm more concerned about my data resides somewhere. If I go to have I been pwned, I think I'm at 32 different pwns because that data resides in somebody else's cloud. I don't think anybody's targeting, Adam, but I do know that that data gets out there. Somebody aggregates that data, your texts, like even on 9/11. Man, it was a horrible day, but somebody actually released 9/11 texts after that because those texts were being, were somehow or another were being captured.
Well,
So
back then it was easy.
yeah, so what I'm getting at is I'm not worried about somebody targeting Adam. I'm worried about the drive-by, the person who says, like, look at all those people that were doing those things with Ashley Madison. They use fake email addresses or they use this or that, but eventually a lot of that data had attribution, and then some people took advantage of those data by running APIs. Supposedly Facebook no longer has it. I know nothing about Facebook anymore, but they ran it and they said, "Oh, if you don't turn around and give me your stuff, I'm gonna release this text to all the people on your contact that I already exported."
Yeah,
So it's more about scripting and an opportunity to make money.
well, in the context of this conversation, right, that now is considerably easier with AI. That much easier. Because you don't necessarily need the data set itself, but you can also just have the method built out for you, how you want to search it. Yeah, the Cambridge Analytica, scenario was quite interesting. I met Chris Wiley a while ago, who was the one caught up in that business, and did an interview actually with him. It's got to be
It's
5
something
years
to
ago
drink.
now.
Sorry.
Yeah, probably 5 years ago, I did an interview with him, and it was pretty interesting to see how open and available that data was. And when they were highlighting it to Facebook, they were like, "Oh no, that's intentional. It's all by design." And then, obviously, all the other stuff came out later, and they've written 10 documentaries about it or whatnot. It is going to be way more available, not just the data itself, but also just the way that you can access it. Brian Krebs is probably one of the best people at that stuff, right? He just continues to impress the hell out of me as a security person, and he's an investigative journalist, not a security guy, and he can just like, oh, I know who that is. Like, I can tell by the way that he uses words. Then I can tell by his Proton email address, plus this, plus that. It's crazy. The thing that came to me, Adam, as you were saying, is however many, have I been pwned? I've had an equal or about the same number. It's like, do we just rotate our cell phone numbers like every couple of years? Do you rotate? I've had the same email address since 2000. I've had the same phone number since 2000. It's, should I change it? Like, should I just get rid of it? I mean, I don't know. Or should I come
Well,
up
you
with
know how
another
it
method to
is,
protect myself?
Mike. It's all about pieces of data, right? You can change your phone number, but then you're going to have to change your name because eventually there's attribution from one to another. Again, like you're chaining, right? Okay, so maybe that's your Google Voice number, but now there's got to be something of real value in that data that you have. So you're using this to piece that to piece this. Oh, I got your longitude and latitude from your you were playing whatever that Pokemon. So there's always some kind of attribution to something. Unless you're some crazy nut that has Faraday bags for everything and putting concrete around your house, you're pretty screwed.
Those people are crazy. Don't trust them. What do they know? Oh, it's fun. Look, on the other side of AI, I'm lucky to have access to some of it. I work for a company that's not all that old, so we're not stodgy. There's no like get off my lawn crap that happens all the time. So if we see something that's interesting that can help me do better stuff, I'm on board. So one scenario, this is maybe an adjacency, but like security questionnaires, like the thing that we all hate. I have a T-shirt that says "Friends don't send friends security questionnaires." I probably should have worn that one today.
I'm gonna send you one now.
Oh, it's such a good shirt. I literally have the T-shirt. It's a good shirt.
Oh, we can't copy it then.
Okay. So Joe, it's funny, right? Because this is actually part 2 of the podcast we just recorded, because we spoke to a person that works for a security company, and we were talking about AI, and we're like, what type of questionnaires, what type of framework is out there? And she said, well, there really isn't, because it's so diverse and so different. It's more about your use cases. Do I turn on Copilot? Do not turn on Copilot? Do I allow people to use LLMs outside? Do I not let them use LLMs? Do we use internal LLMs? Do we let them to only do certain things? Can they upload certain data? Can they not upload certain data? Does it have to be scrubbed? So it's more about the interview than it is the questionnaire.
I've read a few though that are like, can you please tell me the background screening process you ran for your gardener? And it's like, we don't have an office. Like, well, we still need you to answer the question. Okay, well, the question is not applicable, but that's not one of the drop downs I can choose. So it's a fun one. I empathize with some of those folks as well, because they've got a regulator who's like, I will not change the way I ask you questions. I cannot think outside of the confines of a poorly written law.
Well, Joe loves questionnaires.
Oh, God, I can go on about questionnaires for a long time. But actually, that's a really good example of something. And I got to ask you as a CISO how you handle this, because, you get these questionnaires. And for those who don't know, if you have auditors or, companies that you're a vendor of, your customers, they send you these big questionnaires to say, what does your security program look like? And they ask you about all this detail, and it's a real exercise that it's kind of an interesting psychological thing that you can have so many different versions of things that are different, but that all basically say the same thing, which is a perfect, use case for AI, for LLMs. But you have to kind of, by definition, put your most sensitive information into it in terms of all your security stuff. And so running things locally is
a bigger question.
Not realistic.
No, I use AI to write my questionnaire for the questionnaire.
I was a big advocate for. Are you familiar with the SIG? There's a thing called
That's a standardized one that some people send
out. It's like 9 domains, 7 domains, 9 domains, whatever it is. It's 1,600 questions. It's massive. It's open. It's $5,000, right? To buy. Maybe it's more now. Maybe it's $8,000 or $9,000. But like, it's still not a significant amount of money for a company that needs to inquire or manage these processes. But unfortunately, people felt like that was their job security, was to write a bunch of really shitty questions and then from there share them with people who really don't want to answer them. We are using AI. Is probably the most successful deployment of AI in my team is the automatic questionnaire answering. Today, wow. I got the highest. We got 96% of the questions were answered with a very high fidelity answer. We obviously check them all the time. Now we moved to more of a knowledge management case. So we're spending more time on knowledge.
But I got to ask in doing that, and if you can't answer, it's fine.
I know what the question is already.
Yeah, are you doing it with a local LLM, like an Olama setup or something,
offline,
or are you just using
Yeah.
Copilot, GPT, Claude, whatever.
I'm using a vendor, so established
Using a
vendor.
vendor.
We have a relationship with them,
You do. Okay.
and we have a contractual relationship with them. And there's a few vendors out there. The one that we're using, I've used a few times again, and they're look the amount of hours saved by those humans that are in there just plugging
That's
away.
that's it.
It's a risk
Yeah.
reward scenario, and in this
Right.
instance, it's worth it having an established solid relationship.
We had a guest on here that has his own LLM that he markets so that it's offline and competes with Microsoft. I don't know if you remember Joe, and
What, are you
he
calling
sell.
me old? I remember.
But you are old. You're about like
He's,
what 13 minutes
Jesus.
older than me.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably remember a lot more than I do. I forgot what I had for breakfast, but
No, no, no. I remember that. That was his. That was his
that's your stick.
differentiator.
I
That
Yeah.
thought you were
you
going to
can
say
get
what
your
he
own
had for
pen and get your
breakfast.
own thing. Yeah. But it is ironic too because I ask something like that. Say like, what about this? But again, when you step back and you say, you're in security, you're probably outsourcing so much stuff with so much sensitive data. Your EDR, your SIM, if you're using a SIM, all sorts of things. It's like, what's the difference anyway? You kind of get to that point too.
As people as a security practitioner, you're always told like number one, don't upload your proprietary files to like a virus total or to a sandbox. You have to have your own proprietary sandbox. You can't do Google searches and look for things because when you do, then your search history is available and somebody can turn around and possibly query it and know what you were looking for. Like like especially, I mean, I know it's horrible, right? People who commit crimes are like, where do I get duct tape and tie wraps and garbage bags and lime? Eventually your data is going to be searched if there's a subpoena out there or a threat actor wants to go to the extent. And it's the same thing with LLMs. It's the same thing with almost anything these days. Anything that possibly can go that can be exfiltrated, you got to be careful.
You got to be thoughtful about it. You definitely aren't, and this is a balance of like, we're thoughtful about the answers too. There's definitely tons of sensitive information in there because if it wasn't sensitive, we'd probably post it on our website and say, have at it, go look, go nuts, right?
So here's the ironic part about it. We can even go old school. Everybody uses their copiers in their offices and they make them photocopies, but all that data is still on that drive.
Mm-hmm. It
Unless you
is.
tell your vendor when they take the hard drive back, I want you to either erase or destroy that drive's going back with everything you've ever scanned and copied.
It is true. I'm lucky in that I have one printer in the entire Cribl estate, and it resides in our San Francisco office because we only got one office. We're a remote first company and have been since inception. And even then, I can't imagine we're printing much of sensitive information. We've even got our lawyers to start using things like computers. It's been really cool.
Oh, wow.
Well, are you like
Living
using
the
the
dream.
Jedi mind trick to have this happen? Because I mean, especially with lawyers, they love even the ones who are young in their 20s love paper. It's crazy.
They love dead trees, don't they? They love to whack them down.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, Mike, that's where Joe and I met, a law firm. And I remember Joe asked me to handle something. So I ended up making the mistake of speaking to an attorney, and it went kind of like this: Is your name Adam Roth? My name's Adam Roth. Do you work in the security whatever? I go, yes, I do. He goes, what day did you know that this Apple? I'm like, whoa, you're deposing me? I work with you. This is just a technical issue, not like we're not going to court. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
he tells me that, and I'm like, let me guess, that was a litigator, right?
Joe, don't you ever do that to me again? We worked for a law firm and we never saw attorneys. We never did. We were in other
So,
buildings but
so we
Joe
tried to
spoke to
avoid
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
got deposed asking a technical question on data loss prevention, why this guy's email was being rejected when he sent his proprietary information from his corporate email to his personal email. Hey, shouldn't the software already know it's okay because it's been normalized? I'm like, that's not how it works. And I had to spend 30 minutes explaining to him as if I was on, I was like being questioned, like I was somebody who committed a crime.
It's like the I don't know if you guys watched Suits. That
Oh yeah, I watched every single episode.
I haven't seen
so
that.
that's Harvey Specter. You were going in there to Harvey Specter, and he was ripping you apart. It sounds like.
Spectre was an amateur compared to this guy.
I love to quote that TV show to attorneys when I talk to them, and I have a number of friends that are attorneys. I work for an attorney, and I love to quote that show, and they're like, "That's the most unrealistic show ever," and I'm like, "No, it's not. It is exactly how all of you operate."
Right.
And I start making my case, and they're like, "Well, you're all just like Mr. Robot." I'm like, "Well, that's actually a way better accurate depiction of us."
Yeah, it's funny when you're dealing with someone in real life and they start doing something and it's so stereotypical. You're saying like, "Gee, wasn't this a South Park? I mean, is this like the real world?"
Well, yeah, we just actually said that a couple of times recently, Joey. You and I, like, that was a Seinfeld episode. Like Seinfeld is so real, and it's based on people's real experiences. I'm not saying every TV show is based on. They have a really good what do they call it? A technical advisor. Like they get these cops for cop shows. They get EMTs for EMT shows. They get lawyers for attorney shows, whatever. But Seinfeld, man, they pretty much covered everything.
Seinfeld's The Simpsons, and I've looked all this up in an LLM, obviously, so that we could have this conversation. But it was it is Seinfeld, The Simpsons. South Park makes a point of it, right? They just read the news and then they just run their play, and it's headphones only. But man, I could watch that stuff all day long. It is just it just hits the mark, and so many great writers out there that just pick these things apart.
So did South Park predict anything to do with AI? Because I don't watch it enough.
It's a good question. I probably should. I should know the answer to that. And once we conclude, I'll be hitting up Perplexity and seeing what they have to say.
Look, here's the thing, and this is like a running thing for years. It's like The Simpsons and South Park have predicted virtually everything because they've had like 600 episodes.
Eventually,
there's just so much, and some of it's got to come true,
Well, Joe, we're about out 60 episodes. If we get 10 times, that means we can start predicting things too.
That's right.
Ooh, that's it. Well, you could do an episode a day for the next 2+ years, and you'll be fine.
There you go. That's easy. Except Adam's got to help me editing them because
I offer to help you. I don't want you've been hitting me up for the last couple of days, yelling at me about that. But the question too. So I have a question for you. Let's reverse the question here. Forget about AI for a second. If we do 600 episodes, is Joe and I going to increase the valuation of our podcast?
I mean, based on my algorithm, I'm hearing probably about 500 million valuation.
Oh wow, Joe, where did he get that number from?
Must have been an LLM. Okay, well, talking about predictions, no predictions, but Myke, I mean, actually, the fact that you're using AI so much and that you've really helped crack the questionnaire puzzle is great. I mean, what are you looking forward to? I mean, what do you think is the next stuff that you're going to find really, really useful?
I do believe so. My sort of conversation earlier, I was saying about being able to interrogate your data, just sort of using the words that you just want to say rather than trying to fit them into a box. A real world example there. I was at a retail company. I was like one of my early days in the job here, and got to visit a customer up in Mass. And we're sitting down, and there was these two young ladies sitting next to me. They were sitting next to each other, both SOC operators. They were, the one woman, you could just like hear the volume of her key presses was increasing. And she's just banging away on this thing, and she's looking at her friend, and they're going back and forth, and they're pointing on the screen, and then they're, plugging away again. And it was one of those scenarios where, in the end, you just saw her, like, she figured out whatever stupid semicolon was in the wrong spot or whatever syntax error she had. And she's like, throws her hands up, it works. She's happy. And I'm sitting there going, okay, mission in life is to make that not happen for, all the other folks that have come up. I think for me, the other big one is to be able to do a lot more triage, a lot more triage. Like, there's so many false positives out there, and I have a twitch whenever a false positive comes in. My poor team has to experience that on a regular basis when we go through our feedback sessions and we're having conversations. I see a rule, the rule is spitting out the same thing, and it's like, hey, yesterday this happened 6 times, and we had the same alert come in 6 times, and you told me they're all false positives. I think your rule could do with some tweaking. So I'm looking forward to AI being able to help bridge that gap and know why it's false positive hitting versus missing something on the true positive side.
Yeah, but isn't that an extension of the human doing the natural language, even if it's verbal or typing that the natural language? So if I said I'm doing a natural language and I go, look for the source IP address of anything that has to do with web servers, and then that's interpreted because it's really not specific enough. That's really the human that has not, or should the AI be coming back and asking, oh, can you answer these questions to give a more detailed search?
What the human is often bringing to that in those cases are the context and the knowledge. And that's the real challenge. I think. I think LLMs, Gen AI, has the ability, I guess, in the promise of doing that, but it still ain't easy. I don't think.
No,
You know?
but I guess it's a good call out that you say it that way because the AIs have the ability to bring a different context that we as humans just can't hold in the air. There's no, they've got memory that's way beyond our capacity for immediate sort of like processing. So I bring context in some way. I would say I bring skill and experience. They can add experience by them operating, but what they can do is they can munge way more data than I can in a way faster way than I could ever possibly do. And they can run it all at the same time. So like parallel processing and things like that, they could run 10,000 queries all at the same time that I couldn't type out on my best day. I couldn't even yell at the keyboard fast enough to get those things done.
Yeah.
But I know and hopefully can train the system and have the human in the loop to when they give me back a bunch of crap, I can ignore that. When they give me a bunch of stuff that's actually valuable, I can also give positive feedback so that I can continue to iterate on it. So I think me and the LLM, my operators and their LLMs, we're going to be able to figure out what's good there. And then the next one would be that sort of we collectively, between the smart humans that we have, we can make one sort of concerted point of view as we interact with these things. I think that's a pretty big opportunity for us.
I was going to say, Joe, I argue the opposite, Joe. I argue if it's a new SOC analyst, they don't bring the experience, but the AI has already learned the experience, maybe from the more tenured SOC analyst, and that can bring back to the more of the junior analyst by saying, oh, like, you asked a question about this. Can you give me more context so they can really define through AI that search query a little bit more focused?
Adam, that's a really good point. I think I don't think I've heard before anyone talking about, everyone's talking about, the junior analysts are going away, but using the AI to train the people. So that's interesting.
I
That's
love
why
that.
you have me around, for my good looks.
That's going to get our valuation up, come up with stuff like that.
I absolutely love that too because I'm ideally going to retire at some point, and those new people that are coming in, they've got a lot more time before they're going to actually retire. I think on that front, like we have interns that work with us now. We've got some people that are switching out of like one career, moving into another, and I'm super excited. The thing that's most exciting for me is to sort of ask them their way of interacting with data, and I mean that broadly, not just in telemetry world, but like across all things. Like, how do they work? There's a lot of quote unquote fear amongst sort of new grads about what job they're going to take. Oh, I'm going to go into finance, I'm going to go into banking, I'm going to go into science or whatever, and they're like, am I not just going to get replaced with an AI? And it's like, well, not if you actually are a smart person. What you know and what you have with you is great, but how you can actually extract the valuable nugget of information and then use that to a better application, that's where we're going to have you there. And I love talking to them and learning how they are interacting, whether it's an app or they're interacting and searching for information, or they're just playing Clash Royale on their phone to their heart's content.
I think technology companies have gotten to a point. First of all, I want to say most technology companies, I'm talking about medium to large, have embraced the fact that they want you to learn AI because they feel AI is a force multiplier. But I would also argue that technology companies are not hiring people based on necessarily, and I say this very carefully, not how smart they are, but how good they are at thinking and analyzing and coming up with new ideas. It doesn't mean you're not smart, but what I'm getting at is anybody can have book knowledge. You can know everything about law, everything about how to do networking. But if you can analytically think and determine and come up with real, robust, new things, that's what people are looking for. They want you to think outside the box. Unless AI is going to have consciousness, you still need a human to come up with some really good ideas.
That's the scary prospect, right? Is that they're going to have consciousness in not too long. Who knows when? I definitely wouldn't bother predicting it. I'd be wrong. I'd hope I'd be wrong. In that, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if have you ever had a conversation with an AI?
Yeah. I had one threaten me. I've been hiding from it since.
Was it called Skynet?
I'm looking for Sarah Connor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or John. Maybe John could save the day for us, right? I had one the other day. I was reading something about a law getting passed in a country that I don't live in, and I was just like, why is everybody all up in the air about it? And it was interesting. I was at Black Hat, and I probably had maybe one extra cocktail the night before, and so it was just me sort of laying in my room at 6 a.m. contemplating, further decisions I had to make that day. And it was pretty interesting. The thing that really messed me up about it is it like had a point of view, and then I just said, I hate your point of view, and it just completely changed its point of view. So like, and
Really?
it's
You
just a
see,
spineless AI.
I've had the opposite thing where I've had conversations. I've deliberately, asked it about certain controversial topics, whatever. And I have found, talk about the bias thing, that they are sometimes locked into something. And I've even asked it, I go, why are you locked into this one answer and you won't even discuss anything else? And I think then you're probably just hitting hard guardrails.
One of my colleagues, we were just going through AI the other day, and we were asking it questions. I forgot what it was, it was something about what's more important, a career in technology or a career in law. And he's a former attorney, and he was getting frustrated because he said, well, lawyers write the laws, but technology does this. He goes, but if there's no attorneys, you can't. He goes, it doesn't matter. And he goes, well, you can go back to pencil and paper. He goes, at the end of the day, that pencil and paper still has to be filed in a computer and it still has to be processed. So you still need technology. And he was getting, no, this is so biased. And he was getting mad. And I said, the lawyer says you're stupid. He goes, well, he can say whatever he wants, but guess what? He's not going to have a job soon.
You see, I'm surprised it said that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That surprises
that
me.
was crazy.
This is where my usage of AI, is sort of it's growing and changing the way that I interact depending on the outcome I'm looking for. But this is where prompt engineering is actually something where I initially thought it was just a bunch of crap that people were, using fancy words, right? Now I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I keep a cheat sheet on my desk, the little ChatGPT cheat sheet, because it's got a bunch of prompts. I have a couple more on my post-it notes on my monitor, so that like depending on what my activity is that I'm using it for, I can define the role that I want the particular LLM to play. Like for example, and I hope none of my board members are listening, but like or are going to listen to this. But it's one of those scenarios where if I'm going to write something out for them, I'm going to say like effectively put their personas, not their actual names, because I'm not going to do something like that. Despite the fact that that's public information, it's still not something I'm going to do. But I could put in there like my audience is a CFO, or my audience is so and so, and we're about this big, and all of those various metrics, and then present my case and have it debated with me.
Well, wait, so what are your personas for them? Like you've got this guy in this role who worries more about golf, about this stuff. You got
No,
this guy
the
doing
dwarf
this who falls
names.
asleep in the middle of board meetings, like
He's got like
how do I communicate to them effectively?
give him the dwarf names, probably.
Exactly, exactly. I've got sneezy and happy and sleepy.
So, did you ever give your Chat GPT a name? I gave it a name. I gave it Hal, and it's not
I
too
love
happy
that.
about it.
I love
Oh
that.
no.
I love that. No, I haven't gone so far to name it because I don't like it that much. And I think once you name something, you start to get an affinity for it. I have enough with the Echo based device and the Goog device and all those other ones. They get their names. This one just gets to get beaten into submission.
Hey, Joe, we're at 55 minutes. What do you think here? Should we go on for another hour?
Well, actually, I don't know if we can because Adam, something's going on where you're in the dark there. You're scaring the hell out of me. You look like we're not doing a Halloween show here, are we?
We almost are. It's almost my birthday, so it's good.
Oh, that's right. It's coming up. No, well, yeah, that kind of takes us to last call, as we like to say. Yeah, we have been. God, it's funny how things go by so fast. But Myke, we'll give you the last word here. What's your final thought on what you'd like to leave us with in all of this stuff?
AI is here to stay. It's I think in the next 12 months there's going to be a lot of companies out there, and the only ones that are really going to exist in the tech sphere are probably going to be AI companies, and whether they rebrand themselves as an AI company to exist or otherwise. That's just sort of how I generally see it. That said, while as scary as it is, the only way you're going to learn about it is probably getting your hands dirty and getting into it and using it. And I'm super excited to be, at a company that deals with data. Being a data company I think is the most exciting thing ever, because with the data we can actually produce some pretty interesting things. And ideally, with us in the telemetry space at Cribl, it's going to be a pretty interesting time in the next few years to see, even next few months. It's moving so fast. It's super exciting. So yeah, embrace it. I used to say use it for 15 minutes a day. Like, you get and do 10 push-ups or whatever when you get up in the morning. You should kind of be doing your AI push-ups, if you will. So just get out there. I know you said you moved from one to another. I think it's all model driven. There is no right model. You almost have to look and see what the new model is on a day-to-day basis to see the one you should use. But it's pretty neat. It's very neat.
I would venture to say, Myke, that AI is not going anywhere. We might be as humans, but AI will always be here.
Yes.
How's that for an answer?
I love that. Maybe it'll learn how to make us a cocktail.
Yeah, we've talked about the robot and the robot, housekeeper and everything. The robot bartender, that wouldn't be bad. And you know what? We could deduct that.
There is a bar in Manhattan that
Is
has
there
that.
such a thing? Really?
Want to go to it?
Yeah, let's go.
Road trip?
All right, yeah. Myke, you
Love
coming
that.
into New York anytime soon?
I absolutely am. We'll have to. We'll get it in the books.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us. This has been a blast, and yeah, we can just go on and on about this stuff. But every time I talk to someone who's into it with AI, I learn a little bit more. And so thanks for sharing and coming on with us.
Thank you, Myke.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the time, guys. It was a good conversation, and here's on to 500 million.
That's right. We're on the way.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone.